So the topic for today is TOC and agility. Okay. So before moving further, let me give a very brief background about what is TOC. TOC stands for Theory of Constraints. It comes from a book called Goal by Eli Goldratt. The book basically is about, it's a story about a manufacturing firm which is on the verge of shutdown, and how the plant manager and the others are able to bring it back from that situation. And during doing that, they actually discover the theory of constraints. In the book, for example, there is the manager goes for a trail with his kid and the kid's friends. So there is an example like that where they go for a trail. They have to reach the end of the trail by sunset. And while some of the stronger kids are able to go very fast, but they have to stop and wait for the other kids. And there is one particular kid who is very slow, and everybody is waiting for that kid. So now what to do? How do you recover from that situation? So what they actually did was that they made it easier for the kid. And if you compare the same situation to any enterprise, any organization, you have bottlenecks. And the whole idea is how you can improve at the bottleneck, because everything is dependent on that. When we talk about enterprises, they are complex. So it's not only about one function, it's many departments, many functions coming together, interacting with each other, and the throughput, that is how much things get done in unit time. The throughput depends on all this, the complex environment coming together and delivering. Now, so let's take an example, say, of a bank. Now there is a bank and it is launching new products all the time. But they realize that their products are always late. They realize that their competitors are launching products before them, and because of that, they are actually losing a lot of potential customers. Now they want to improve from that. They want to ensure that the products are launching in time. Now, what do you do? Now, one option is that you give improvement targets to all these departments, all these functions, the IT, the marketing department, the different vendors, logistics, training. Everybody is given improvement targets, and they improve on their part, and they are then able to deliver on time. So the assumption here is that all the local improvements add up for a global improvement to happen. But is this assumption true? Need not be, right? Now, going back to the kid's example, the slow kid was slowing down everybody. So it doesn't matter how strong the strongest kid is. What matters is how fast the slowest kid is, and what we can do to make this slowest kid faster. So this is what theory of constraint is all about, is about finding the bottlenecks in your organization. And generally you will see that there is one bottleneck which is actually slowing down everything, and how to make improvements at this bottleneck. Now, okay, fine, sounds good. So we are saying that improve at the bottleneck, but how do we know where is the bottleneck? Now let me take a manufacturing plant example. There also, like the bank, they also have raw material, which needs to be through various processes, needs to be converted into a finished good. If we want our our throughput to be faster, our throughput to be more, uh, same thing. You have to identify your bottlenecks, make very focused improvement at the bottlenecks, so that we have increased throughput. Now, how do you recognize? How do you find where the bottlenecks are, especially in an enterprise which is a complex, environment? How do you know where the bottlenecks are? Manufacturing plants, it is a little easier. Typically everything is very visual in a manufacturing setup. One look at the shop floor and you can see that wherever the queues are piling up, the bottleneck will be there. For example, say a lot of machining is being done on various parts. They are all coming together, and finally they need to be painted, finished, and before they become finished goods. Now you see that in front of the paint shop there are queues piling up. So very clearly, wherever the queues are, the bottleneck most likely will be there. So you will go to the paint shop and try to improve there, and that is the only way the plant will improve. Anywhere else, you create whatever automation, whatever, buy new machines, it won't help till you don't solve the paint booth problem. But things are not visual. For example, in an IT environment or a complex environment like a bank. So how do you make it visible? Typically, what we do is that we will do value stream mapping. So what is a value stream? It is, an idea or some, a thought of a new product or a requirement coming from the customer, and how it flows through the system, through the enterprise, and finally how that idea or that the idea of a new product or that idea from the feedback from the customer, how it can be converted into dollars. So idea to revenue is my value stream, and all the steps it goes through. Now, but still, I don't see the bottleneck here. So when we do the value stream, we still can't see the bottleneck. So what you can do is that you can simply put a Kanban board into picture. So on a Kanban board, you will see.
Sutab, actually, I understand what you mean by value. Value stream. But what do you mean by the value stream mapping here?
Okay, so the value stream will be. So again, I was saying it is the journey of an idea, or in case of a manufacturing plant, the raw material, all the journey it goes through before revenue can be generated. Whatever, for example, in IT, it can be requirement gathering to maybe some level of sign off with the customer that yes, this is the requirement. Designing taking place, coding taking place, testing, deployment, all these, all the activities which are taking through before we can actually say that, okay, the idea is now deployed in production, the end user, the customers are using it, and there is some revenue which is being generated. So all the steps which goes through that.
So identification of the value stream steps,
right.
Can we consider that as a value stream mapping? So basically identification and then showing it on the visual board or something like that?
Yes.
Okay. Fine, thanks.
Okay. So once the value stream mapping is done, you can actually have a Kanban board of all these, all these items going from ideation to dollar. For example, here in the bank, we have, now let's take an example that a new card needs to be launched. A new credit card needs to be launched. there are a lot of, so we do a value stream mapping. So there is a backlog, some designing needs to be done, some construct. By construct, I mean both IT and, the physical product, that is the card getting ready, ready to be deployed. So once, it is deployed, some training needs to be done, and finally launched to the customer. There are various, of course, parties involved here. We have information technology, we have third-party vendors maybe who are, physically producing the cards. There is a marketing department, there are training departments, there is a training department. All need to be ready before it can be launched to the customer. So we can actually create cards on our Kanban board representing all these things which are happening, all the steps. And the whole idea is that once all the Kanban board cards get completed, we can say that yes, our new product, which was a thought in our mind, is actually now launched and the customer is using it. Now, of course, on the Kanban board, it won't be only the cards. It will be, for example, some loan scheme which was designed and launched, or something else. There are so many things, activities which are happening. So everything is on the Kanban board. Now, the question is that, yes, we have visualization. We can see what is happening where, but where are the bottlenecks? Where are the queues? Are they visible? So in this case, I think clearly, if you really look at the Kanban board, things are piling up in front of the training column, which means that somehow something is happening where while the design is done, the construct is done, each of these entities are ready with their deployment, but actually the training is not able to, they're not able to start the training. And also, if you really look at the last row, looks like training is falling behind, and cards are piling up in front of them. So they are not able to move cards from backlog. Very clearly the bottleneck on this, in this example, is visible. Very clearly, any changes to, any improvements to information technology or our marketing or setting expectations with our vendors is not going to increase our throughput. If our throughput has to increase, our training department needs to improve. So clearly, the bottleneck is visible, and we know where to focus our efforts on. Now, bottlenecks are visible. What to do next? How do we resolve the bottleneck? So in theory of constraint, there is something called 5 focusing steps. Any questions? Okay. Very clearly there are, in TOC gives us 5 focusing steps. What are these 5 focusing steps? The first thing we already have done. We have identified the constraint. We know where our constraint is. And in our case, looks like training is a constraint. Now what to do? The second is exploit the constraint. Now, when we say exploit the constraint, we are saying that how to, maximize the work which is being done by the constraint. For example, in our case, the training department. So when we investigate a little, we find that somehow the training department has to run a lot after different environments to get inputs, and they are waiting. So they are the constraint, they are the bottleneck, but still they have to wait for inputs. So can we improve on that? Can we ensure that people are coming and giving them inputs in time so that the training department is able to focus on the work at hand and complete it in time? So that is exploring the construction. Of course, we can have various examples for it. The other is subordinate everything else to the constraint. So first step, identify, then exploit, and then we are coming to subordinate. What subordinate means that because this is a constraint, because the training department clearly needs help, the other departments can actually extend a helping hand. Again, example, the training department, the IT guys can actually come and sit with the training department and maybe help them create the training material. So examples like this. So others are coming and helping them, sitting with them, taking some of the work which the training department is doing, and helping them complete things faster. The fourth step in the 5 focusing step is elevate the constraint. What does elevate the constraint means? It means that now that we have done step 2 and step 3, we have exploited. Now the constraint is very as efficient as possible. We have subordinated, others are coming and helping them. If even now, if this is continues to be the bottleneck, what we can do is that actually add resources. We can, maybe we can add a specialized person who can actually deliver training programs on the web to various bank branches, ensure that the training is imparted fast so that we can go ahead and launch the products. So things like that. So you are adding resources to the bottleneck.
So a question here.
Yeah.
So generally, if you see in the IT, whenever there is these kind of problems, then what we do is just add the new, try to add the new people. Fine.
Right.
So instead of basically try to go step 2, step 3, we can directly go to the step 4, elevate the constraint and add the people. So what do you think? What is the issue with that?
Right. A good question, by the way. My next slide, actually, we will talk a little in detail about this in the very next slide. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So once elevate the constraint is done, these 3 steps generally should take care of the bottleneck, and you should be able to reach a situation where this is no longer a bottleneck. But do we stop there? We say that no. It is 5 focusing step is a process of ongoing improvement. It is about continuous improvement. It is about one bottleneck is solved, the throughput will definitely improve, but something else will become a constraint, and we have to go and do step 1, 2, 3, 4 with the next constraint. So it is about continuously identifying what really is the constraint in the organization and have very focused improvement on the bottleneck, on the constraint, and not try to improve everywhere. So this is what 5 focusing step is all about. Of course, something Shrikant talked about is what happens if we go directly to step 2 and 3 and step 4 and not really do step 2 and 3. So we are saying that not a good idea. And this, by the way, as Shrikant mentioned, by default, people try to do that. Whenever they see a bottleneck, the first reaction is add resources. In 5 focusing step, they Ellie very clearly cautions us against that and says that if you do that, actually you are creating more chaos. Now, why? Now, Shrikant, you gave the IT example. For example, we know that, just an example, that testing maybe is right now a bottleneck, and we are not able to test at a rate at which, matching the rate of the other departments, and due to which things are piling up in front of testing. Now, what do? Do we go and add resources right away? We are saying not a good idea, because what will happen is that these new resources will need to be trained. Somebody will need to mentor them. Somebody will need to spend time with them. And who will spend time with them? Not the other departments, not maybe the development guys, not the designers. Typically, it will have to be the testing guys. So there is a bottleneck, and we are actually adding work to the bottleneck resource. So instead of resolving the bottleneck, we are even creating even a bigger chaos there. So the idea is never ever move to step 4 directly, which is, by the way, what you try to do, the default step. always go through the step 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Shrikant, did I answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Of course, we talked about an enterprise level, agility, where we are saying is that, and in an enterprise, it is not only about IT. It is about various departments coming together, various functions coming together, working together, and delivering something. So improving only IT won't help. If you're an enterprise coach, if you are concerned about enterprise level agility, look at the overall system. Try to find out the bottleneck, where things are, slowing down, where the queues are. Have very focused improvement in that area, and that will actually lead to enterprise level agility. Of course, we are not only, working at enterprise level. Even within the functions, within departments, there might be bottlenecks. We might want to improve. So how do we do that? Kanban, by the way, is a very good way of agility. But typically, people see Kanban as a visualization tool. It is more like, put the cards together, visualize, see what is happening where, who is doing what, and manage the project like that, or manage your whatever work you are doing like that. Now, but a Kanban board is not restricted to visualization. It actually goes much beyond. So the 3 principles, the core principles of Kanban are visualization, WIP limits, and manage the flow. The WIP limit, managing the flow, and also, of course, visualization. All these things are actually are important. And actually, if you see the 5 focusing steps we just talked about, is actually part of the deal. It is part of the whole Kanban thinking. Now, how? Let me explain you briefly. So let's look at this this illustration where, say, this is an IT environment where some IT development is going on. So we have different lanes. There are people, there are developers, there are maybe testers. There is somebody who's looking at the prioritizing and helping team know what to work next. So they are all coming together and working in the Kanban way. So we have got started. But what happens very soon, we reached a situation where there is a bottleneck or there is a blocker, and one of the cards or one of the user stories actually gets blocked, and it is not, the deployment team is not able to deploy it. What happens? In a Kanban board, so if you look at the picture below, there is a WIP limit. So typically what will happen was that because there's a WIP limit, every time there is a bottleneck and things kind of stop and they are not able to move because of the WIP limit. So here in this case, in the develop lane, the WIP limit is 2. That is, at any given time, I cannot have more than 2 work in progress or 2 cards which are in the develop lane. So what happens if anything stops or gets stuck downstream? The whole flow will stop because I cannot pull more cards. So what do we do? How is it, by the way, related to 5 focusing step? Very simple. The moment it is done, we know that the people, the developers cannot pull more cards to development. So the only option left with them is to go and help the deployment guys. So they go and extend help. They say, anything we can do to help you. So very clearly you see the step 2 and 3 of the 5 focusing step come into play, where the deployment guys are saying that, okay, let us focus on our work. You go and get us coffee. Or also, we have some technical issue here, something we are not able to figure out. Can you figure out and tell us what actually it means? So they're all collaborating now, coming together and saying that let's resolve the bottleneck. So the exploiting and the subordination is all coming into play here. Now, of course, exploit doesn't mean that you go and start exploiting it. The word doesn't sound very good, but actually what it means is that you actually, the opposite of exploit. That is, you actually go and treat the bottleneck well and help them as far as possible.
What if there is a scenario when development team have nothing to do with this, or maybe they are not capable of helping them out? What should be done in that case? Because that will make development team and maybe the testing team idle for a longer period, because there might be issues that deployment teams say that there's nothing you can do because we may have a dependency from supplier, or it could be anything. So do we still have to follow our the policy of WIP limits, or we have to introspect that?
Good question. And therefore, a lot of times what happens is that people start working on Kanban and very quickly they are overlooking the WIP limits. Now, WIP limits, of course, the reason is not only that, one of the big reasons, of course, is the moment there is WIP limit, the moment you cannot pull in more work, you have to go and help others. So you have to collaborate, you have to help, you have to get the bottlenecks resolved. So this is one of the reasons. The other reason, of course, is also that it doesn't help. If it doesn't help to keep people busy, you might keep on pulling cards and keep on working on it till something is not getting deployed. Still, our throughput is anyway 0. So the whole idea is that stop and help in whatever way you can. And therefore, in this example, by the way, the illustration is from Henrik Niebuhr, where Henrik Niebuhr talks about things like go and help me coffee, or ensure that nobody is distracting us. So even small things like that. But of course, it goes a little further, that maybe you can help us and write a script or some automation, something which will actually ensure that these issues which we are facing now maybe will become better in the future. You can go and do refactoring. You can do other stuff which is actually making the code quality better, rather than just producing work which nobody is consuming downstream.
I think one of the important thing here is that generally, if you look at the 5 focusing step, and the step 4 is about, for example, adding the resources. So generally we go into that direction immediately. So in case there is a problem in terms of the WIP limits, we try to add, increase the WIP limit for the developers, and then basically let tester work in the way they are working. So that is the immediate reaction we have basically. So, but what this 5 focusing step is all about is that we need to really think about the step 2 and step 3 before going to the step 4. And that is a very good insight it gives to us while handling the Kanban working process limits. Because generally our immediate reaction is to go to the step 4. So, but there can be step 2 and step 3 as well, where people can help the people who are under distress.
So, Ashish, the answer is convincing, or you still have?
I think it's. I think I got the gist of it, and I think it opens few more questions for me. But I think I'm good for now.
Right, and by the way, Ashish, in my previous company, once we had a situation like this, big project, and actually we were already getting late. We are using a Kanban board, and in the testing lane, cards were getting stuck. You could clearly see that some pileup was happening. we hadn't actually put a physical a WIP limit on the board, but you could clearly see that cards are piling up. The project manager, the person who was responsible for the project, called a meeting and said that we have to stop this now. Everybody, all the developers stop working. We are in the next 1 week, we are going and just helping the testers in whatever way we can have, whatever we can, way we can help them. And actually, you know, in 1 week, we were able to resolve the situation quite a lot. Of course, if they were, the project manager was only thinking about having the resources utilized, everybody, busy with something, he would never have taken this decision. So, it really helps. Yes.
So it's all about, I think, activities. I mean, do you want to focus on the activities or getting the work done? So in this example, project manager is choosing for getting the work done instead of asking developers to continue getting more work.
Okay.
Okay. From presentation perspective, okay. So as you can see, just by having WIP limits, focus, everybody helping each other, you can have a nice flow going. For a nice flow, for things to getting completed, it is important to have WIP limits and, have the 5 focusing step kind of thinking in place in Kanban. So what is that? Start, finishing, stop, starting. Yes. So that is what Kanban is all about. And 5 focusing step goes a long way in helping us do that. I come to the end of my presentation. We have 3 minutes, roughly 3 minutes remaining. Anyone else has any questions, any suggestions or any feedback?
Yes, Sudham, I have a question.
Yeah, Ashish.
So Sudham, kind of situation which you just explained. So it happens, generally at the end of the sprint or at the end of the release, like last sprint of the release, right? But it happens for once, right? Let's say next release, if it again happens, then if it is a repetitive issue, then don't you think we should follow this step 4 at that time?
No. So we are not saying that step 4 is not to be taken. Of course, once we have gone through the step 2 and 3, the whole idea is that, the instinctive reaction to a bottleneck always is elevate, always go and add resources. And it's a worst decision you can take at that moment, simply because it will actually add to the chaos. Your bottleneck will become worse than instead of improving. So always the logical way of doing it is go to step 2, exploit the constraint, and exploit is not really the way it sounds like. Exploit means go and help, the constraint as far as possible, subordinate to that, and then only come to the elevate option. Of course, you will come, if still the bottleneck remains, you will definitely come to elevate after you have tried option 2 and 3 and you know that yes, this is the best we could do.
Yep, right.
Right. Any other question?
So I think it basically provides you the, in terms of the priority, like these are the kind of 4 steps before in which the last step may be the, looking for extra resources. But so in case of Kanban as well, it may happen that after thinking about all the options available, you find that you need to increase the WIP limit, and that is the valid option for you. So that is also, that may also happen in that case.
Right. For example, even in your day-to-day life, for example, if you don't have enough space in your house, in your room, the first thing, instead of saying that, let me go and get a bigger house or a bigger cupboard, let me try to find all the waste which is there around and try to minimize that. And once I've done, and once I feel that, no, yes, I did whatever I could, now is the time to go and buy new resources. That is a new cupboard or something like that.
That makes a lot of sense, Sutap. Thanks. So thank you everyone for joining this webinar. And thanks, Sutap.
Thanks a lot for everyone.
Thank you, Sutap. Yep.